Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the show, Retro Life for You. My name is Chris Adams, host of the show. Sitting in with us this week, we have Tibidar from the Three Cousins podcast. Sorry, but drew a blank that point. Sucks when you get old, people. Okay, I'm getting old. I can't help it. Just excuse me, look over me. But hey, if you will, man, tell us about your podcast you guys have going on. I was on their podcast just a few weeks ago, just released last week. I shared that in case y'all missed it. But tell us about the podcast.
So the Three Cousins podcast, just it's three cousins. We all are about the same age, but we really didn't. After we were kids, we really didn't see each other a lot. As a matter of fact, we went like 15 years where the three of us weren't in the same room at the same time. We kind of just, it's kind of a lighthearted thing, right? I mean, but the underlying theme that we try to present is we don't always agree on everything, but we manage to get along regardless. You know, even if we're calling each other morons on the show, we're still friends. It's at the end of the day, we're still really good friends, actually. And so we tackle some pretty important issues like, should you fold or hang your t-shirts, or who makes the best barbecue, or, what's the best Quentin Tarantino flick?
But the essentials.
Right. Yeah. I mean, very, very important things in life. Right. But yeah, I mean, it's just three cousins. I mean, we're just kind of get on there and have a chat about the topic of the week. And, I don't know, we have a good time with it anyway. I know that people seem to like it. So I was kind of surprised. I really didn't think anybody would want to hear us argue.
Dude, you would be surprised what people want to listen to these days. I mean, people are so into reality TV. This is what I like to refer to as just reality audio, because we're just being ourselves usually as we're talking. I'm not on here trying to talk in a radio voice to make people think I'm more exquisite. No.
You do it pretty well, though, man. You could be on the afternoon show.
No, I'm not doing stuff like that, but that's pointless. It's what's the fun in it, Right. Normally we get on here, we'll pick a movie, we'll talk about it. It's usually what both people usually like, though, so we're kind of positive about it. We don't usually have somebody to play devil's advocate. I may sometimes throw a twist in there just to have a little fun or something, but it's usually just hanging out like we're hanging out in the living room talking about, hey, remember this movie when we were younger? This was great, wasn't it? It's on TV tonight. Let's watch it. Yeah, and stuff like that. That's the whole point in having it. And so people will tune in to listen and watch you guys pick at each other, have fun with each other, because they can tell you got a good relationship with your friends and everything, and that you love what you're doing. And that's the whole thing. I mean, if you were fighting on there constantly, now people might not tune in for that because you sound serious, but what you guys are going at it pretty good when I was on there with y'all. So I would say that people take that like pretty lighthearted. And we were talking about things that we had as kids that kids don't deal with today, I believe, wasn't it?
Yep. Things like, VCRs and pagers and
rotary phones and
yeah,
the sound the internet made when it dialed up.
Oh man, that 50-foot phone cord that you had to have to get around the corner so you could talk to somebody in private, not in the middle of the kitchen.
And don't go further than 50 feet because your sound quality starts to get worse or something.
Yeah.
The longer the phone cord, the worse the connection was, it seemed, man. It was crazy. But, we got something for you guys tonight, though, that goes back just as far, and it is the movie Red Dawn we're talking about tonight. Not to be confused with the re-released version of Red Dawn that took place in the city with, I believe it was Chris Hemsworth, wasn't it?
Honestly, I've tried to block that out from my mind. I'm not going to lie to you. I've watched the original Red Dawn, I don't know, probably 100 times at this point in my life. I mean, it's been out for a bit, and I've watched it quite a bit. But that 2010, 2012, whatever version that was, I think I might have watched that through one time. And
yeah, it's one of the Hemsworth brothers. I know. I think it's the one that plays Thor in Avengers. I think it's Chris Hemsworth. They had a couple of had a couple of newer people that's been out in some movies today, but I don't really know them too well. Except the one that played his brother, he was in a couple things. But the original, though, I'm gonna start off by telling you the release date, how much it made, what the budget was, and stuff. Then we'll go to the cast, which was very. I mean, to be a poet and not know it, it was a vast cast. Okay, it was very big. A lot of people on there that went on to do a lot of great things. But release date August the 10th, 1984. Estimated budget was 17 million. The opening weekend, U.S. and Canada made $8,230,381, and it grossed worldwide. It said $38,376,497. Now, worldwide apparently consists of U.S. and Canada because that's the same numbers. I guess Russia didn't want to play it because we took a shot at them. You're invading the country, we're killing you all. Same for some other countries that were teaming with them in it. So I don't know what the case was. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was released in other countries. I'm just playing, but it doesn't. It just says worldwide that the cast, though, man. You mentioned this earlier about how many people were in it and what all they went to do. I mean, ton of people. Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, Lea Thompson, Charlie Sheen, Jennifer Grey. Uh, I can't say Darren Dalton went on to do a whole lot, but
No, but Powers Booth definitely had done stuff before and after that.
right.
And then
Harry
the one that
Dean.
got me was William Smith, who was a KGB or a Russian, I don't know, colonel or major or something in a movie. He has been doing movies. He's movies from like the 1940s, or TV shows or whatever, from the 40s all the way up into almost the 2000s.
Hey, I think you're freezing up a little bit. Just to give you a heads up, I started to hear your voice go robotic for a second, and then your screen froze for just a second. Just you said to let you know if it happened, so just a heads up.
All right.
He also William. I'm glad you mentioned William Smith. I was going to mention him too because he's also the guy that I've seen on multiple TV shows, and not to mention with Clint Eastwood. I think it was it Any Which Way You Can or Every Which Way But Loose.
One of the two, I'm sure.
One of the two. He's the guy that came in to fight him at the end, that fought with him in the bar, but fought against him in the end.
Yeah, well, and he was even he was Conan's dad in the first Conan movie.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he's been around for a good bit, to say the least.
Yep.
Harry Dean Stanton, he's done it quite a bit. He played Mr. Eckert in it. I remember him and later on being in some things. I think he was in the Green Mile later on, playing the janitor in there, and he was in some Steven Seagal movie called Fire Down Below. As the town, I think he was in as one of the town guys that let him come fix his porch or something like that. He didn't want to get involved in what was going on, but he secretly was telling him stuff so he could bust the big corporation that was dumping stuff in their mountains. The rest of them were just kind of here and there for me. Can't say I know. Frank McRae had a small part as a teacher, and he was in quite a few of the movies. We've seen him in playing police sergeants and Lock Up with Sylvester Stallone as one of the inmates. Things of that nature. So a lot of them have gone on to do other things. Now, the ones we mentioned up top, though, were the most successful in Swayze, Howell, Sheen, Thompson, and Gray, along with Powers Booth, obviously. Most successful of the bunch in the movie. But we could spend a whole hour talking about what movies they all went on to make. And that wouldn't be nothing. The movie, though.
Even some movies together, because a lot of these guys were in the Outsiders, or at least a couple of them were in the Outsiders before they did Red Dawn.
Yeah, I couldn't hear what you said on that one because you got a when you talk, a buzz comes over.
All right,
it's like it's almost like your voice is going over your voice in a high pitched robotic sound, but sounds like a buzz. I don't know how to explain it to you.
All right, let me pause this for a minute. I'm going to switch internets.
Okay, while you do that, I'll go over something for the movie here then while you're switching that over to see if it helps you. But yeah, like I was saying, the movie itself, the way it starts out is kind of unique. They're in a classroom setting and where they're at, and the teacher is talking about history to the students. And I really can't remember the history lesson he was giving them, but he was talking to them about roughly some kind of historical thing that involved war, I think. Well, suddenly in the background, you have got paratroopers coming down out of the sky, just dropping down. And they're everywhere. And the kids and him are all looking, and the teacher's like, well, you guys are way off course, it looks like. And the kids are all looking at it, amazed at what's going on. And then there we go. We've got them dropping down. They're starting to unload weaponry and everything. So I was just talking about, since you just popped back in, I was talking about the beginning of the movie where the paratroopers were falling in and starting the attack on the school. Now, I never really understood the whole purpose of just attacking a school full of children unless they didn't know where they were attacking. But it's making their presence known for sure.
I think it was truly it wasn't only the school that was attacked at first, because you see once they get into town, there's been attacks everywhere. But I think they just parachuted into anywhere that was kind of a clear drop zone, and probably that field or whatever next to the school property was as good as any.
Right. And now there's a funny thing about about the ones dropping in. 5 of the 36 paratroopers in the beginning of the movie got blown as much as a mile off course during filming. One of them got stuck in a tree. He had to convince the locals as best he could he was not really an enemy soldier attacking them or anything. People seen him and how he was dressed. And they thought, oh no, World War III is happening right here. They're attacking us. They're attacking us. They're dropping people in. I mean, can you imagine that? If you were
this was at the height of the Cold War. I mean, they were filming this in whatever 83 or whatever. And honestly, he's probably really lucky that people had not seen the movie yet, because if people weren't fearing the Red Menace before Red Dawn came out, boy, after Red Dawn came out, I know it would have been the first thing on my mind had I seen some Russian paratrooper stuck in a tree.
Right. That'd be the first thing you're thinking of. And you might not have asked no questions. You might have shot first and asked second. He's probably lucky that he didn't get shot by somebody, truth be known.
Yeah.
And I was going to do this episode we're doing now a couple of weeks ago because I thought it was perfect timing, but it kind of got delayed in getting it done. I couldn't do it at that time. But you think about it, this is kind of a perfect time to be talking about Red Dawn. Here we have Chinese balloons flying everywhere, getting shot down or flying over our country. They won't shoot it down. They're saying it's a spy balloon or something, taking pictures and taking intelligence and everything about what we got. It blew off course. They said it was just a weather balloon, but conveniently it's going over areas where there's nuclear silos and bases and everything, right? So it makes you wonder because, and we all have a right to wonder on it, whether something like that could happen because let's face it, our relationship with China is not exactly 100% in the good.
No, definitely not. And really even Russia nowadays, not that it's as bad as it was in the 80s, but even Russia, the invasion of Ukraine and stuff and the posturing kind of on both sides. As a matter of fact, the Wolverines battle cry has kind of spread itself to the Ukraine. They've been spray painting that on Russian vehicles and stuff, just like they did in the movie.
I saw that, and boy, I laughed.
It's one of those places where life imitates art.
Right. How awesome is that? Yeah. Because we're talking about stuff like this, enjoying our flashbacks of the movies we grew up enjoying and watching and still watch today. And you see an actual war going on, and people are mimicking this movie. And I don't want to say paying homage to it, but it's just to make the Russians mad, I think, because we made fun of them in the movie. A group of high school kids were kicking their butts. And now this, supposed to be a smaller area in Ukraine is standing up to them and taking the hits and hitting right back. And they're not falling to them.
Right.
And so they're putting the Wolverine thing on all their stuff just to rub it in a little bit more.
Yep.
Of the one, now, I would say the way this started, there's a lot going on all at once. Like you said, towns being invaded, the school got invaded. A lot of places are going on here with roadblocks set up. It hadn't been long since you see Swayze's character of Jed dropping off his brother Matt and their friend at school. That he's back in the school again, looking for them to get in the truck. Get in the truck, get in the truck. And he's getting as many as he can in the back of the truck and taking off. They think they're going to go through town not knowing what's going on. They get caught almost in town, have to bypass that and take off and get shot at and chased just to get saved in a field, luckily for them, because some of ours have finally flown in, seeing what's going on and come over and took care of that. They had stopped already. No, had they stopped already at that point at the gas station, or was that after that?
They had stopped already at the gas station because that was when they were basically headed to the mountains with the supplies that they had got from the gas station when they got hit by that roadblock and ended up going through that field. And chopper came down with some rockets and lit up the Russians, and they were able to keep on getting it. Right. And then they found out that their radiator was empty, and that was a pretty major scene in the movie I can recall.
Which gives you the I don't say it's a lifelong question, but I mean, it does make you wonder, can you really pee in the radiator and get enough out of it to take care of the problem? I've never had to go that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I can drink water all day long and hold it as long as I can and never even come close to filling up a quarter of that radiator.
Yeah, I mean, if you had 6 friends with you, that's a pretty tall order.
Yeah, it's a pretty tall order for sure. But it was a fun thing for the movie, though. It was like, hey, you said it, get up there and pee in it. Come on, see if it works.
Yeah.
Oh, but if it's leaking, if it got shot and it's leaking, what point was there to pee in the radiator anyway? Because it's going to come right back out when it starts.
Well, no, I think they were intimating that he had jammed it either jammed it with a hunk of lead or some JB weld or something. I think he had jerry rigged it, but they just didn't have any water.
Okay. Well, that would be different then. But it just gives you the idea that, like one person stood up there, peed in it for a minute, and now they're good. They're going to get wherever they want to go. I just don't think it works quite that way.
No. The other thing I thought was funny was they had stolen cases of pop from that, not stolen, pardon me, taken cases of pop from that gas station, and they didn't think about dumping some Coke in there. Because, I mean, once again, I think there's probably a lot more Coke in that can than urine in my bladder.
Well, they didn't want to waste all that. That's for later.
Yeah,
they're going to be thirsty. They're going to be thirsty now. But, to know what in this short period of time, you grab people up, you've left out, you're trying to escape and get out of town. You pull over at that gas station because you see nothing's happening. It's one of the kids' father's gas station. And he tells them, load up on everything, batteries, ammo, guns. One of them even takes a football.
Yep. Sleeping bag. Yep.
Got to have a pastime, I guess. Sleeping time, lanterns, whatever you can get your hands on, load up and take it. And they do, and they get out and they get up there. I mean, obviously it's not enough to last them for a long, long time. But they can hunt, they can fish, they can eat, but eventually they're going to have to go somewhere because those batteries are going to run out pretty quick. They're going to need to keep in touch somehow, hear what's going on the radio, pick up on some chatter if they can or something, because you can't hide forever, basically. They hit a good long time before they started actually fighting, but, you can't do it forever.
And they decided to wander back into town when they did get to that point. They were out of. I think the catalyst was they were out of the prepackaged food that they had liberated from the gas station, and they were down to just meat that they had. There's some scene about where do you think hamburger comes from, and nobody shoots it. Well, I mean, I guess maybe they don't shoot it, but it was an animal on the hoof that got killed, and you eat it. So then they wander back through town and they kind of come through this battlefield and they're like, man, it looks like this stuff's been here for 1,000 years, and it's these tanks and stuff that are half burned up, and
right.
They wander back into Calumet.
It makes you wonder. It kind of makes you wonder, like, I mean, an invasion's one thing, and they've always said nobody would ever invade our country because nobody would be brave enough to invade the country because pretty much 90% of the households have guns in them.
Mm-hmm.
Guns and ammo, and people wouldn't hesitate to start shooting if they see this happening in that case. It makes you wonder how believable a situation like that would be with people coming into the country that way, choosing one specific area that they want to target. So, I mean, maybe you choose a very low populated area and you drop down into it and you take it over. But, I mean, they got things there. How did they get all these things there that were vehicles and everything? Surely you weren't dropping everything out of a plane.
I mean, I think in the movie they had intimated that they did. But so later on in the flick, if you dig into it, they talk about how the Cubans and Nicaraguans came up from Mexico and linked up with this Russian force that had parachuted in. And And if you go back even further than that, the catalyst for them invading was a poor crop in Russia over a year or two or whatever. That kind of drove them to like, look, we're going to end up having to starve, or we got to invade somebody.
I think they picked the wrong place to invade, though.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, they always talk us up of being like a superpower, like we're real big, we're huge. But in the movie, it's not really portrayed as much because this small force of people, and I say small, I'm sure it's, you know, bigger than what it's in my mind, but still relatively small compared to what you need to invade an entire country. You would think that we would be able to overpower something like that and go in and just take everything out, and that would be it. It wouldn't go on for months and months.
Yeah, I agree. A little bit of movie magic, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's all for story. We understand it's all for story and everything. Because a movie's not necessarily supposed to be believable.
Right.
We want something to be entertained by. So it's if they were to invade and then we squashed them in 3 days, what's entertaining about that? Now, real life, you're probably cheering. And it's like, yeah, we got you. But I mean, it's not making much of a movie for you at that point. They say here Patrick Swayze got frostbite during filming.
Yeah, partial frostbite in his fingers or something, I believe.
I believe so. He said it. He said sometimes it still feels like having toothpicks shut up his fingernails when it gets too cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you get it,
frostbite in the hands. It's crazy.
Well, and they did not shoot this in Colorado. If I remember right, they shot it in like New Mexico. And that desert does get cold.
It can, yeah. Hot during the day, cold at night. I mean, you never know which way you're going to turn, especially if you get into an area where deserts might run into mountains. And then mountains, you've got definitely the cold from that. They said C. Thomas Howell was a rodeo cowboy at one point. I didn't know that at all. That's interesting news. But he helped teach the rest of the cast how to ride horses. I wonder how many of them actually were able to ride the horses very well for the distance, because like in the movie Young Guns, they talk about Charlie Sheen and quite a few of them had never really rode horses, and Charlie Sheen didn't ride any of the horses at all. He sat on a horse a couple of times and did some things, but he would not ride the horse anywhere really.
Interesting.
So as they said, a lot of them were falling off, hitting the ground quite a bit. They had to learn and be taught. And some of them picked up on it fairly well. Some of them already knew. I wonder if when this group here, though, how many of them actually knew how to ride horses and really took to it well?
I don't know. I know that they said that they did like an 8-week or 6-week or something. I mean, not a boot camp, but a boot camp, a training, so that they would be familiar with the weapons that they were using. Right. And they may have thrown some horsemanship in when they did that. I don't know.
That's quite possible. Definitely quite possible. I wonder, something else was what we were talking a moment ago about having to go back in town at one point. Now, you remember the first time they go back into town? They, Jed finally agrees, says, okay, you're right. We're going to have to go in at some point. Let's go ahead and go in today. So they go into town. They go into this one shop. They tried talking to several people along the way, and they all turn their heads from them and won't look at them and keep walking. Mm-hmm. And they're like, man, what's wrong with them? They're ignoring us like we got the plague or something. So he says, let's go in the shop over here and talk to so-and-so here. She'll know what's going on. So they go in there and she tells them, they're all being looked for right now. Like they've got posters for them or something. They're looking for you as we speak. Well, why are you sticking around in town at that point talking to more people? I wonder how they didn't really. Somebody didn't see them coming to the town at least. How does you come in, you get your head down, your collar pulled up? Maybe they're not paying close attention to you. You're just some other person in town. They're still letting roam about like they were doing. But, I mean, talk about a ballsy thing to do at that point. Yeah, knowing that you're still being looked for. And I think it's about at that point, wasn't it, that they really start fighting back?
Well, she told them where they were keeping some of the prisoners at this prison camp because they were looking for their dads. Yeah. And part of the deal was all these guys' families had been put in these prison camps because these guys were on the loose.
Yeah.
And so they had taken all their families and locked them up. Re-education camps, they call them.
Right.
And they, so that night after they had been in town, they went to this re-education camp. And I think that was the Harry Dean Stanton scene where he says, boys, avenge me, because he knows he's dying in this camp, right?
Right.
Well, and then later on, in a couple more scenes, they saw that the people from that camp got executed, and that was when it was on, because they were like, "There's nothing, nothing left but to fight."
Right, and some of the stuff they did was actually pretty smart. For a group of kids who really didn't have any military training or anything, digging trenches in the field and covering them back up, or putting the door back down and covering it up with stuff that was already on the ground, looked like it was just a part of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
The girls being bait, knowing where to run by to pull them into it, suckering them in for a kill. Getting weapons off of them, stealing weapons from their places where they're storing them at. I mean, they had their hands on a rocket launcher. They had a lot of machine guns. Now they're getting their hands on and everything. It's not just some hunting rifles and some pistols and some extra rounds. Now we're talking they're getting bigger equipment and more ready to go.
Yep.
It's not like they're running around in tanks or anything like that, mind you. But I mean, they're doing a lot of damage just cutting supplies off and doing small things to them, just nipping away at them enough to irritate them and tick them off.
Right.
And what makes them the most mad is that they know it's a group of kids. Why can't we get our hands on them?
Well, yeah, because they're spray painting their graffiti on everything that they blow up. Every scene you see where they killed a tank or shot a truck up or whatever, they're painting Wolverines on it. So these Russians know, or Russians, Cubans, whatever, they know who's doing it. This ain't some special forces that dropped in behind their lines. This is a bunch of kids.
Right. And hey, it called back up to you again, I think. Your voice is doing that high pitched sound where it comes in behind you again.
All right. Huh. That is odd. Is that any better?
It's still doing it. It's like it's hard to explain to you, and I don't know if it'll. I don't really know if it'll come through in the recording or not. We'll wait and see when I get it out there and I go to editing and everything. But it seems like when you talk into it, everything you say is repeated. Like I can hear myself right now too. Like it's repeated, and it's like a high pitched robotic sound, like
I'm
echoing.
wondering if because this ain't Zoom, I need to find some headphones. Because I know Zoom has a noise canceling thing, and it keeps that echo from perpetuating.
Yeah, no, this has. I don't know if it's that or not. I've had some people come on that didn't have earphones in. That didn't happen to them. Most people do wear earphones of some sort, though.
You're right. I have a pair around.
I think this is supposed to have something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that soundboard I'm gonna get will come in real handy in the future.
Yeah.
For like
do you wanna pause this and give it a listen and see if you're getting that?
What's that? Say again.
Do you want to pause this and then give it a listen and see if you're? I don't want to waste a bunch of your time and mine. I'll try to find a set of headphones or something. That's all I can think of. It's got to be echoing from the speakers to the mic.
It probably is. If you want to see if you can find some headphones, go ahead and I'll wait on you for a second, and I'll just edit all this part out when I come to audio, and I'll cut it out of video too.
All right, give me a minute or five. I just got to find something with a cord on it.
All right,
I think the Bluetooth ones will work.
Oh, we're good. Go ahead.
All right, thanks.
Got love the Max, huh?
All right, hang on. I'm trying to get this so it doesn't blow my dang eardrums out.
All right.
Wow. Man, this is the craziest thing. I'm getting so much side tone into these earbuds.
Are you hearing some of the feedback and everything to it?
All right, can you hear me now?
You say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I still hear the robotic sound.
All right.
Did you end up switching
I'm
over?
back.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I got an earbud and I got mine.
I mean, did you end up switching internets again earlier? Did you go from the hotspot to the home?
Yeah, I'm on the home, but I'm still getting stuff through my speakers, man. Don't ever buy a Macintosh.
No, I have an iPhone and an iPad. As far as I'm going with that, I won't go to the computer.
Well, the problem is I had one years ago, and I wanted to get my old files, and so I bought another one so I could use my like backed up hard drives.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's now that I bought another one, I'm using the damn thing. And I'm telling you, that was a damn disease. Hey, that's different. Did that change anything?
Nope. Still the same thing.
All right.
Matter of fact, I heard myself echo like 3 seconds after I said it, but on your end.
That's odd.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, I can't get these damn speakers to shut off. How about that?
Nope, same thing.
Yes, the problem with that is now I can't hear you.
Is it
That's
is it something that requires you to start over, like to restart?
I don't know. The funny thing is, like, I got this headphone in, and it's in my head, but I can't tell the desktop speakers. It's killing me.
Did you go to the area on the Mac where it lets you swap out the speaker that you're using?
Is that better?
Actually, yeah.
Now I've got you here.
Okay. So I don't hear the background noise right now.
Is the sound that sounds better now? Can you hear me
Yeah,
talk?
when
How about
you
I'm talking now and it sounds better? And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. When you
All right,
talk, I
cool.
don't hear no crackling noise or anything like that over it.
It had to be getting feedback from the speakers on the laptop itself.
Yeah, that's all I can figure would be that. You're
Yeah.
right.
It's just I think Zoom must have been canceling it out, and whatever this is, StreamYard is a long figure. So I'm sorry about that. If you want to start over or whatever you want to do, man.
No, I can edit it.
All right, cool.
I'm making a note right now from about the 30-minute mark to the 38-minute mark to
Yeah.
check right in through there because it may be like at the 27-minute mark. But I mean,
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
it was
know.
probably 27.
So I put on here check around the 30-minute mark. I can go back from there. You know, it was at least at the 30-minute mark for sure.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I haven't had that problem before.
That's all right. But like I said, you know, so what I'll do is I'll just let's see. It's a smooth way to work back into it. We were talking about then how they were just starting to fight back and everything.
Yeah.
Do you remember the actual last thing we said before we stopped?
Did we stop right after I was talking about them painting graffiti on tanks that they shot up and stuff?
You were definitely talking last because I had told you about it being that sound that noise again.
Yeah.
It may have been that because we were talking about how frustrated they were making them and everything because they couldn't catch a group of kids.
Yeah.
And you started from there. So okay, so what I'll do is let's give it about 5 seconds where I can see that on the audio line.
Yep.
And then I'll come in and I'll say I'll just say that sorry about that. We had some audio difficulties we fixed. We're back on it now, and we're gonna pick up where we left off and everything.
Okay.
And that'll be cool. So okay, here we go. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. We had some audio difficulties going on for a minute, but we're picking back up where we left off. We were talking about the high school kids basically are now getting pretty well armed, and they're making the Russians mad because they're tagging their equipment and everything with Wolverines, just to show them, you know, you can't get us and everything. I mean, it's in a sense, it's hilarious, man, because like I said, a group of kids just can't be caught, and they have no previous, you know, obviously no previous military experience. I mean,
no, but I think that was part of the selling point of the movie too, is that, you know, kind of one of these, you can do this too, you know.
right.
I guess I've seen the movie portrayed both ways in that it is an anti-war movie because, you know, there's consequences and war is terrible and these kids are out there, you know, braving the elements and braving the Russians and you know and dying. And also in that it's a little bit of an action adventure flick, you know, with you know movie magic, I guess.
Right.
So
Right. This is always a big running joke. I lived in Florida for 10 years before I moved back home. So I'm back home in Tennessee now. I live maybe 30 minutes outside of Nashville, between Nashville and Fort Campbell's base, the Fort Campbell Army base. And in Florida, some people would be like, what would you do if somebody invaded here? You know, what are you going to do? You know, if our country comes to a point to where we're so divided, it results back in a civil war again or something. What are you gonna do? I'm like, I guess I'm gonna move back home to Tennessee where all them good old boys are. They know how to take care of themselves.
and it's always real seriously, Mad Max is a bad idea. It's always a better idea to get home.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just picturing the looks on their faces. They're like the good old boys. I'm like, I use a term, you know. I mean, the guys there, you know, they know how. If it come down to it, I mean, in all honesty, do you want a country boy on your side that knows how to fish and hunt and make do with the stuff around them and how they can get by and live for a while, or do you want to be in New York City where they're lost at the pizza place on the corner is closed down? I don't know.
Well,
I
and
don't
not
know.
only that, I mean, I don't, you know, I've kind of lived in the country my entire life, and maybe it's because I have lived in the country my entire life, but the city seems like it's when the lights go out in the city, it's very dark.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I one of my cousins that does the podcast with me over there, he came up and visited me and he said, "Man, it's dark here at night." And I says, "Yeah, it's dark here because we don't have like a street light on every corner. But on the other hand, when the lights go out in that city because the power's out, oh, it's dark."
Oh yeah.
You know?
Literally get away with anything you wanted to, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody would see a thing and know any better. But I mean, that's the kind of situation you're used to, though. At that point, growing up, like you said, in the country and area, the place where I'm at here, like you said, no streetlights on every corner. If you're in the town portion of it, of course, there's adequate lighting and everything.
Right.
But the further out you go, no, you got one street light in your yard if you got it turned on. You can always opt to get one where you can have it turned off if you don't need to use it, or it can be motion activated or something. And by street light, I'm sorry, I mean like floodlights or something.
Mm-hmm.
Not a big street light pole or anything. So I mean, learning how to maneuver your way around in the dark and everything like that, and knowing where you're going, have a feel for it and everything, knowing what you can and can't do, and I don't know a great deal about some of the things in the woods. If you get deep woods and everything here, like you're talking, oh, don't eat that berry. Certain ones, yeah, I know not to touch because the leaves and everything on it. But the average person will go out there and see berries and start eating them.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're either on the ground or your stomach is wrenching or something because you shouldn't have eaten this. That's the reason. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like the remake so much, because it takes place in the city, and I'm thinking, there's not a whole lot you can do there. I mean, they go off at first to get away to a cabin. They get chased away from there out into the woods a little bit, to a little cave setting, it looks like. But most of the stuff takes place in the city with the fighting and everything. It's just, it doesn't do it for me. It's not the same.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Did now Powers Booth, we mentioned him earlier. He brings a different feel to it, a different aspect to it.
He's an adult. He's actually in the military because he's an Air Force lieutenant colonel. So he has, and he actually kind of has a little bit more of the worldview of the war that's going on, where these kids have, they have a very localized point of view, very focused. But he's been out and he's seen what's going on. He has a wife that's trapped behind enemy lines in Texas, and he's, he talks about the siege that's been going on in Denver for months. And these people are eating rats and whatever else they can get their hands on, and kind of gives the kids some perspective maybe of what's going on outside of their camp.
And, I can't remember, did they ever really lay out what was considered free America versus occupied territory?
So they talk about the Russians or the Cubans and that came up through Texas and met with Russian brigades that had come through Alaska and cut the pipelines and come down through Canada. But apparently the West Coast and the East Coast were still free America. So, it was somewhere. They were kind of trapped in the mountains. It seemed like the Russians were kind of trapped in the mountains. It seemed like, because they didn't want to be in the open territory. They wanted to be somewhere defensible, and definitely the Rocky Mountains are defensible for sure. I'm not sure that they give exact like landmarks and stuff, but they talk about, actually they do give at some point, they talk about what cities, but they talk about nukes going off in cities too, that kind of may have enforced the no man's land. If they drop 4 nukes down, in Nebraska and Omaha and, Kansas City or something, and kind of blocked that side of the country off or irradiated it anyway.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, when he gets in there and picks up, it's like their attacks are more coordinated now and everything. He's got the experience. He knows what he's doing. One of the girls ends up falling for him. I think that was Lea Thompson's character.
Yeah, and that was actually supposed to be a more major part of the story. And actually, I read something that she's on an interview or something years ago that's why she took the role, was this, young freedom fighter girl falls in love with the old Air Force guy. And then apparently, I don't know if it was a studio or just Milius took it out because Powers Booth was so much older than her, and it was kind of bad TV at that point.
Right, because it looked like it was like an inappropriate relationship of an adult taking advantage of a younger kid. She's supposed to be a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
next thing you know, there's old men and teenagers getting married right and left, I guess.
Yeah.
So no man, no man I ever knew looked for a young woman. Never.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
No one's looking to trade in their older model for a younger one at all. Nobody. Don't
Nope.
worry, ladies. It's not happening. That's good.
Yeah.
Did I get you out of the
Probably more.
doghouse with that one, or are you still
Yeah.
there? I'm sorry.
There are probably more problems anyway.
There was something similar to that too. A more in-depth love story between Patrick Swayze's character Jed and Jennifer Grey's character Tony.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it says it was cut from the final movie at Swayze's suggestion. He didn't feel it would work in the context of the film's plot. Coincidentally, both stars are later going to appear romantically in Dirty Dancing in '87, 3 years later.
Right.
And it's funny because on the set of Dirty Dancing, she said they never got along. Her and Patrick Swayze didn't get along well. So I wonder if that's the same from Red Dawn, or something came from Red Dawn that spurns that into that movie later on. But that was another one. That's another love point, interest point. That would have been more acceptable because they were pretty much around the same age.
Right. Yep.
But it was cut out as well, though, because I guess they figured there's no time for relationships when it's time for war. Who knows?
Which is funny because that's one of the, I mean, it's one of the things that you do see quite a bit, actually. So,
yeah.
Because that was another thing that Milius purportedly kind of tried to base this around World War II and partisan groups that were active in France and other European countries during World War II. I mean, obviously very loosely, but, took some of the ideas from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so trying to find some other parts here. Of course, while I'm looking for the things in here, nothing this good lasts for too long. I mean, you start seeing fatalities with the group. You've got, I'm trying to remember who the first one killed was in the group. Was it Daryl that they had that they had to kill themselves, or was there somebody else before him?
Well, I think Andy and Aardvark died because they were on that battlefield with the tanks, and Andy and Aardvark both died during that battle, and I think that was first.
Okay, so they haven't killed Daryl yet then.
Correct. I think that happened and then Daryl was a month later.
Okay.
I think Andy, I don't know how Andy would have handled the scene at the end with Daryl. And I know he wasn't present for that scene in the movie, so I'm pretty sure he had gone first.
Okay. So they started getting casualties. Daryl was because he basically was leading the enemy to him.
He swallowed a bug.
He swallowed a bug. So, and they didn't, it's like they had to kill him. They were going to kill him, and Jed couldn't bring himself to do it.
Right.
And it's like at this point, C. Thomas Howell's character, I can't remember what his name is in the movie. He had already become so hardened by this that he just didn't think a second about it. He just came up with his machine gun and pop, pop, pop. It's like that.
Yes.
And that was it. Because hey, he's gonna get us killed.
Yeah. Well, and that's Robert was C. Thomas Howell's character. I was drawing a blank there for a second also. Robert, because that was one of the big deals with him was he had never hunted before. They took him out. He killed his first deer. They had him drink the blood. And then when they got to Mr. Mason's house, which is where they picked up the girls, Mr. Mason told him that they killed his father for aiding guerrillas.
Yeah.
And the guerrillas that he aided
was them.
Yeah. And so he's like, man, we killed my dad, and he's like, no, son, they killed your dad.
Yeah. And then at that point, that pretty much, that did it to him. That flipped a switch on him.
Yeah.
And he was all about taking people out at that point for sure. Do you remember, I know you said you don't remember a lot about the remake. Did you see how they kind of made fun of the whole shooting the deer thing in the remake?
No, I seriously probably have blocked it out from my mind.
So the two brothers take the Robert character out to shoot the deer. He shoots the deer. They're like, okay, man, you got to do it. You got to drink the blood. It's like the spirit of the deer. You got to drink the blood. And it does this and that and blah, blah, blah. And so he finally drinks it. He goes, oh, it tastes terrible. He goes, how'd you guys ever do it? And they're like, oh, I don't know what it tastes like. We never drank that. That was just a joke. And he's like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? He's spitting right and left. I'm going to die. Oh, my God. And I was like, that would have been something I would have expected from the other movie, more or less. It's not a real, a real deal to drink the deer's blood, but the way they made fun of it and poked fun at it with that, I thought was kind of funny.
That is funny.
Even though I don't like that version of the movie better, but it was a little nod at the old movie, a little nod to it to say, hey, we know about you, we recognize you, but we're going to poke a little fun at you at the same time.
Right.
Um, the battles start to get a lot more, intense. Even before Powers Booth gets there, and the kids are taking everything out. They're saving people from getting executed. They're spray painting their name everywhere. C. Thomas Howell's becoming quite the soldier. Robert's becoming quite the soldier of everybody. Jed's doing a great job leading the group and everything. Like I said, everything comes to an end eventually. They get in this open field area in between a canyon, it looks like, and they see a truck accidentally, drop some crates. So they wait a little bit to see if it's safe, and he sends one of the girls up there. She checks it out, and it's food. So she motions for them to come down. They start getting into the food, and they take it back with them. They're just sitting there enjoying the sun on them for a little bit, taking a break, eating the food. When these helicopters start coming over, they found them again. I guess it was purposely dropped for them. I don't know if something was tagged in that as well or something like that, but they end up catching them. So you got the other girl, Jennifer Grey's character, Tony. She ends up getting shot. You've got Robert, who has decided it's now or never. I'm making my stand on, because you don't know what's going to turn out from here. You're going to get chased on horseback, and I don't know if he is horse anymore or not, if something happened to it.
I think his horse had gotten shot out from underneath him, basically. Yeah,
that could have been it. So he throws a little thing back around his face, takes his stance. Don't remember if he yelled Wolverines again or not. He may have.
Oh yeah,
and he's just shooting at that helicopter. I guess hoping he hits the glass and the pilot or something, but it gets mowed down instead. Goes out on top. But if you ask me, he goes out heroically. If anything, he's playing decoy to give the others a chance to get away while he's trying to take them out. And then, of course, the character of Tony getting shot like that and doing what she did. She didn't want to die like that, and Jed could not shoot her either. He couldn't bring himself to do it, to put her out of her misery or anything. So he gives her a grenade. She asks for a grenade, and so they pull the pin. She rolls over, and I don't know if she dies before that. I think she did. The guy goes to move her over, and the grenade rolls out and blows up. Takes one last person out for her before before it's over with.
Yep.
Now you're down to what? You're down to 4 now. You got the 2 brothers.
Yep. Matt and Jed.
Yep, Matt and Jed, and then you got
Danny and Erica.
Danny and Erica. Yeah, I'm glad you remember these names.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I can't. It's probably shameful how many hours I've spent in front of this movie over my life. So
I debated watching it again last night. I watched it 2 weeks ago, and I was gonna watch it last night, but I'm also doing back-to-back shows today. I'm doing this one and I'm doing the next one. So I watched the movie. I watched the movie last night for the next one. And
okay, fair enough.
I'll tell you what it is when we stop recording. I don't want to give it away right now, but anyway, so I was like, should I do it? I just don't have time for another one right now, so I put it on off. I figured 2 weeks ago was good enough. Plus IMDb, I can keep up with it.
Yeah.
I'd probably watch it minutes before the show started, and I would forget their names anyway. It doesn't matter.
It's not hard to do.
This was Charlie Sheen's debut film?
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was like, surely he'd been in something else. I was thinking, wasn't he in Outsiders too? And I was like, no, wait, that was Tom Cruise.
That was Tom Cruise. Okay, fair enough. I was thinking he was actually.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know this was his debut movie. That was interesting for me to hear. There was a scene cut out also, and they figure they cut it out because, well, I'll tell you what it is first. I'll tell you why they cut it out.
Okay.
The original trailer on the Laserdisc release includes a scene with a tank rolling up to a McDonald's where enemy soldiers are eating. The scene did not appear in the final cut and was likely removed due to a mass murder at McDonald's in San Ysidro, California, a few weeks before the film opened. So if there hadn't been a mass murder at a McDonald's in California a few weeks before it opened, that scene would have probably been in there.
Nice. Well, and one of the things that got me about this, doing research for this show, versus just watching the movie, was the statistic that at the time it was released, Red Dawn was considered to be the most violent film ever by the Guinness Book of World Records and the National Coalition on Television Violence, with a rate of 134 acts of violence per hour, or
Right.
2 per minute.
Right. Is that not something?
Well, and we haven't even talked about, this was the first movie that was released that had the rating PG-13.
It's the first movie released, but it wasn't the first movie to get it.
Correct, because Goonies had it, but they hadn't released. They didn't release Goonies for like a year.
It wasn't Goonies; it was Flamingo Kid.
Oh, okay, Matt Dillon bit. So back to the Outsiders connection.
Yeah. Flamingo Kid had it, but it sat on the shelf for 5 months before this was released.
All right.
So it didn't quite make the cut first, but it was the first movie to get that rating. Red Dawn, as you said, first movie to be released to get a PG-13.
Right.
So, and not very surprising. It could almost pull an R rating with all.
I actually listened to someone talking about it recently, and they said, in this day and age, this would have been an R-rated movie, hands down, full stop, no questions asked.
I kind of agree with it. I mean, seems like it would be. So, I mean, like I said, you're down to 4 people now. You got the 2 brothers who are going into town. They're going to go in, and I don't remember if there was an exact reason other than giving the other 2 a chance to get out.
Yep, just to create a distraction.
Create a distraction for them, because they told the 2 of them they want them gone. This is over with. It's done. That we're calling it quits at this point, and we're going to go in. We're going to do this, and they don't want to do it at first. They want to stick behind with them, and Maddie's telling them somebody has to get out and tell the story. Somebody has to get out and tell them what happened. Jed's going in. I'm not leaving him. I got to go with him. So it's for them. It's make or break here with them, and they both probably know that they're going in to die. They're probably going in with the mindset that they're not coming back out, but they're going to take as many of them as they can with them going in, especially if they can get the one guy that they want to get. And I don't know if there's anybody in particular in mind. The one person that almost understood them in a sense, the Russian guy. Was he a Russian guy, or was he?
I think he was supposed to be some kind of Latin American, because he had said he was always a partisan. He had never been on the side of the invaders. He was always the resistance. He was, I'm on the wrong side of the fence here. I need to know what to do. And the Russian's like, be a policeman.
There you go. It's like he's the one that understood them the most, and the desire to fight back. And he sees them come through. Maddie's already been shot by the one guy. That was it William Smith? We said his name was. I'm off that page already. But so he's the one that shot him, and Jeb got him back. But in the process of Jeb getting him, Jeb took a hit as well. Both of them are shot at this point, and the only thing he can think of in the last, their last moments is to take Maddie to that swing set where his father used to take him all the time.
Yep.
When things were happening.
Yep.
So the guy sees him in passing, gets his gun pulled up, ready to shoot, and Jed is, holding Maddie in his arms, stops and looks at him like, just do it. Just do it, get it over with. And he pulls his gun down, so it's kind of like a little nod between them, I guess, and he takes off to the swing set with him and goes there, and then that's where they both die at. The only 2 to make it out were the 2 you probably least suspected would make it out. And they
kind of, I'd say.
And they put everybody's names on the rock that was, there and did stuff and everything. They kind of broke it down at the end too, didn't they? About the outcome of everything, how long it went, or
they said this war, like all wars, ended, and but they made a like a national landmark or whatever out of that rock. Yeah, and I forget which one, not Jennifer Grey, but Lea Thompson's character reads this like eulogy or whatever for everybody, how she still goes up to the rock and reads the names on it or whatever years later.
Right. Did you hear let me go back up here too so I read this correctly.
All right.
Here's one of the 2 things. Soldiers of Fortune magazine said the film's T-72 tank was such a good replica that while it was being carted around LA, two CIA officers followed it to the studio and wanted to know where it had come from.
Yep. Well, and that's another thing with this movie with not that $17 million isn't a significant budget, but I mean, they had to basically hand make tanks and trucks and then blow them up.
Yes.
You know,
everything in this movie was scale. It was to scale. There was no miniatures.
Nope.
There was no green screen kind of work, nothing like that. Everything was to scale. The explosions were real.
Yeah. So, I mean, $17 million all of a sudden doesn't sound like very much money.
No, not really. For what you get out of it and everything. On the same sense of what I told you about the tank, it says two CIA men came to the set having received, this is just another version of it, having received reports of Russian tanks in the area. They were relieved to hear the tanks were just for a movie.
Well, I'm sure they were.
So between Russian tanks being spotted and concerned by people and a paratrooper almost getting his life taken because he got blown off course, this movie almost had some casualties.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and like I say, it was the height of the Cold War, man. The spies and the Russians were the bad guys. I mean, whatever. I'll date myself. I think I was 11 when this came out, and I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it when it was released for VHS because that was kind of the way it went.
Same.
But I mean, this was, I mean, whatever, I was 12 or something, but this was believable to me. This was like, okay, it wasn't that far-fetched. I mean, the red, I mean, it wasn't, I mean, I guess, I guess it was believable enough to me at that age anyway, that the Russians could try this. They were definitely the big bad guys, and they were our arch nemesis or whatever as Americans.
Yeah. But it says here, now you remember the part where Tony goes into town and she's walking out of a building.
Yep.
It says in the film, she sneaks into the town and blows up the Soviet American Friendship Center.
Yes.
The real-life National Council of American Soviet Friendship, a left-wing organization composed of Soviet and communist sympathizers, angrily denounced this movie as paranoid and militarist. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, the NCASF, whose last president was John Randolph, disbanded. Well, they denounced it. You're paranoid people full of militarists, and we're not having this.
Yeah. Well, they darn sure weren't building all those tanks and all those AKs to invade Ukraine.
No, they were not. And funny enough, while being invaded, what was the history lesson over for the class at the beginning of the movie?
Oh, it was the Mongols. It was Genghis Khan.
Yes. And what's Genghis Khan well known for?
Conquering all of Asia. All the way to the streets of Greece or Rome or something. He got into Europe.
Yes. So you're talking about somebody who is known for invading and conquering, and next thing you know, you got paratroopers falling from the sky.
And Mr. Teasdale goes out to talk to him, and we all know how that turned out.
That did not turn out very well at all.
No.
Man, very well at all. Well, it's a great movie. I loved it. Like I said, it's one of the best movies that of the day of the 80s were action movies that I've ever seen, probably, that I can watch over and over. And there's only so many movies I can do that with, I got to have a big interest in it. Like, for example, I love Chuck Norris movies. I like Lone Wolf McQuade. And you and I are the same age practically. You said it was 11 years you saw this movie. So 73, I get it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but I can't watch Code of Silence, which is Chuck Norris. I can't get into it. Almost something about the story of a certain movie brings you back over and over.
Well, and that's the thing, is this had story. It wasn't just action to be action. I mean, I'm that way about Schwarzenegger. I love Schwarzenegger flicks. I have an 11-year-old. We've watched Commando together because I was like, man, if you're going to watch a Schwarzenegger flick, let's sit down and watch Commando, But I don't think I'd watch Commando again, unless I was introducing it to somebody else. But this movie, I seriously have probably watched this movie 100 times. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
Yeah. Red Dawn. For me, Red Dawn, Last Starfighter, Big Trouble in Little China, The Goonies. I can
Hmm.
watch Star Wars. I don't watch Star Wars as often as I did when I was younger, though. But I can go back and watch Star Wars again and be happy with it. I like it, you know. But just some movies that I can't do that with. I'm just not going to. The movie, I mean, the story of it is just not there. Did you know? A couple last things here I'll throw out here,
All
just
right.
in case people don't know. Emilio Estevez was originally cast as Jed, but he had to drop out due to other filming commitments.
Really?
And 84, I'm trying to think of what he had in 84 without actually. Let's see. I'm going to click on his name here and go to 84. Let's see what he did in 84 that he turned down this for.
Like Repo Man or something?
I hope not, because that wasn't a great movie. But Repo Man was out in '84. They could
Oh,
have
no way.
been filming The Breakfast Club.
Oh, and you know what? I mean, of all the flicks, if you were going to cut Red Dawn to go film, I give you that one. That was an American classic right there.
Yeah, now that was in '85 when it was released. So we don't know when they started filming. It could have been started filming. Actually, The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire both went out in '85.
Okay.
But they weren't. I don't know when they were filmed exactly. His next movie after that was Maximum Overdrive, and that was in '86.
Yeah, that one I remember pretty well too.
That's one of them kind of a cult classic type deals I can watch over and over.
Yeah.
Because just the thing that it is and everything. But I would assume it's The Breakfast Club is the reason why he turned it down. That was a smart. I guess that was a smart move. I mean, we get Swayze. Swayze plays the character real well.
Yeah.
You know, and you would have. But if Emilio had taken it, they'd been real life brothers playing movie brothers.
Playing real life brothers. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I guess we're going to pretty much at the end of this here. There's not much more we can talk about the movie. So if you would, throw it out there again one more time about the podcast in case somebody coming in late and kind of fast forwarded a bit and gets to this and hears about your podcast again.
All right. So we do a weekly podcast. It's called Three Cousins. You can find us at 3-cousins.com. It's just me and two of my cousins hanging out and humorously arguing about a topic generally. I mean, it's pretty lighthearted. The important part for us is that at the end of the day, we do still love each other and we get along, even though we don't always agree on everything. We argue about the really important topics, like should you keep your butter on the counter or in the fridge? I mean, it's earth moving topics that we argue about.
If it's on the counter, it can't be close to the stove.
There you go. And it's got to be salted.
Yeah, we don't want it to melt. So
Yeah.
There you go. Everybody, if you get a chance, check them out. Are you on social media as well, or?
Yeah, we have a Facebook. If you hit on Facebook and hit 3-cousins.com, it'll come up. Most of your podcast aggregators, I know we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We have an issue with Google Podcasts right now. If you're on there, you will not find us for whatever reason they dropped us. Spotify is probably the easiest place to find us anyway.
I think Spotify and iTunes are your two major places people find their stuff anyway, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So getting on the others, getting on the others kind of ups your chances of getting more listens. But it's like us on this one here. I'll just go ahead and put ours out in here on this one. For this podcast, most everybody that listens knows where you find me at. I'm on, like you said, Spotify, iTunes. I'm hosted on Anchor.fm, so it plays directly from there. But iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Podbean, a couple other places I know of has people listened to me on there before. So it's available quite a few places, but the two major places you get your listens are usually iTunes and Spotify. So as long as you're there, I'd say you're going to get some listens and some attention for sure. And if you guys want some good, lighthearted fun, take a listen to the guys, 3-Cousins. I promise you will not be disappointed. They are quite humorous to listen to, banter back and forth with each other.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that endorsement.
It's almost like Beavis and Butthead plus another.
There you go.
I don't know who the third would be, but I mean, as far as I don't mean y'all look like Beavis and Butthead, but the type of comedy, the bantering and everything. It's just kind of silly stuff. Beavis and Buddy was always silly to me more than anything.
Yeah.
So,
But it was just real enough that you could relate.
exactly. So definitely a blast. So, well, I mean, we'll go ahead and wrap this up then. Hey, man, thanks for coming on and taking the time to talk about Red Dawn.
Anytime, like I say, this is one of my favorite movies. Maybe we can do this again with another movie. I may not be as knowledgeable, but I had a good time. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we can always do another movie anytime. So I can tell everybody comes on the show, everybody comes on and talks. Always welcome back another time around. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. I got return people. I got some return, but people like me. Darn it.
Well, you're likable,
But how's that go with Saturday Night Live? The old character that I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, and gosh darn it, people like me.
People like me.
Okay, now that I'm done tooting my own horn, we'll go ahead and wrap this up, man. Once again, thanks for coming on. Everybody check them out. We'll see you guys next episode.